Everybody ready? Good. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Englewood Cliffs. Today is December 12th, 2022. I call the meeting to order. It's about 7 p.m. And Matt, we're not doing this virtually at all, so it's all only in person. There's no Facebook option. Madam Clerk, could you please read into the record the statement of compliance?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law, PL 1975, Chapter 231, setting forth the date, time, place, and purpose for this public meeting through a legal notice published in the record, posted on the Borough website and on the bulletin board.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Granjack?
Present.
Member Di Gregorio?
Present.
Member Luciano? Member Park? Member Begats?
Yes.
Member Kapsakis?
Here.
Council President Katrubis? Attorney Mensch is absent and Collins is in place. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Park is an excused absence, and Mr. Katrubis, I understand, is on the way. Please, everybody, rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to open the floor to the public?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Mr. Luciano, Mr. Di Gregorio didn't hear an aye, or a nay, or anything from you two. Are you not participating? Stoic. Okay. Mark them down as no's. And I will break the tie, and I will vote that the public does have an opportunity to speak, because I believe in the public's right to speak. And Mr. Di Gregorio, Mr. Luciano do not agree there. Thank you. Anyone from the public who wishes to be heard, please raise your hand, and I will recognize you. Talk to the microphone and state your name and address, please. Okay, can I have a motion to close to the public? There's no one speaking.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Di Gregorio?
Yes.
Sorry, can't hear you.
I said yes, and she heard me.
Okay. Mr. Luciano, are you not participating?
I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Luciano is here. Okay. Can I have actually, the next thing on the agenda is pretty simple, discussion, 2023 fiscal review and budget kickoff. Mr. S., our Borough Administrator, will kick us off into a new year, although we haven't ended this year yet.
No,
we haven't. I still have a lot of closings to do this year for clients, so it's far from over.
I'm sure everybody gets really busy this year, this time of year. First, I want to thank council, the mayor and council, for not only having this special meeting for this purpose tonight. I think that the three items that you're discussing tonight really need your time and attention so that we can move forward. But not only that, for the time that I've spent in Englewood Cliffs, just an acknowledgement that I think you have some excellent staff. I think you have the basis for some very good leadership within the community as well too. And you actually have a very, very fine community, which overall, you're in good fiscal condition. I was speaking earlier tonight to somebody who said, well, usually the budget in Englewood Cliffs is done mid-year. I won't be here during this time, but absence, good reasons, good purposes, and exceptional purposes, I've always taken the position there's no reason that you should not meet state deadlines when it comes to addressing and getting your budget approved. And your CFO is here tonight as well too, Sharif. And I think he's going to discuss the timeline in general before we leave. But I think you're in excellent hands with this gentleman, and I think you've got some very, very good staff that should be able to proceed and get you a budget before the DCA has to contact you and tell you that you're not in compliance. So, good goal to work for. So, I always like to kick off the budget with a couple of presentations. We've already done this with the department heads. It simply gives them some information and direction. I found that after 30 years as manager and administrators that detailed information allows the council to make detailed and informed decisions. Some municipalities, the budget is rushed. You simply get what they spent last year and what they're asking for this year. There's no direction, no opportunity for direction, and very little for input from the departments as well too. So that's enough of that. So the budget presentation. So in general, what is a municipal budget? It is not the long forms that you send into the state. That is simply a budget document that the state requires. That's not your budget. The most important function of the budget is to establish policy statements, which is established by the elected officials of the municipality. Set priorities for services, programs, and municipal objectives. What do you want to do with the taxpayers' money? Secondly, it provides the funds for operations for delivery of services based on the municipal priorities. Lastly, it provides financial control and the authority to spend funds through account allocations, which is what, that's Shoaib's job. Okay. The rating agencies, what we're looking at here is they actually look at 13 trends. I've narrowed it down to approximately 12. But they look at trends and evaluate a municipality to determine what your ratings are. Those same trends are very good in regards to reviewing yourselves. So some of the things that you need to start doing, and what we've started to do, is look at your budgets over a period of time. So it would be, how much are you getting in total operating budget revenue each year? How much are you getting in state aid? What are you getting in your local revenues? What are you spending money on? What's your fund balance? Your fund balance is your net. If you were a business, what you net goes into your fund balance. Call it profit, whatever you want to call it. But that's what it goes to. What's your tax rate? I've always liked to compare tax rates to other municipalities as well too, plus the tax burden. Forces driving the budget. Why is your budget going up in certain areas? What are the conditions for those areas? Your net value property. What's the property value for the municipality, and is it growing? What's your tax collection rate? Yours is 99%. You can't get much better than that. Total debt. What are you paying as a debt as a portion of your NBT? That's your total value. That would be the same thing as you would look at in your home, is how much is your home worth and how much do you have in credit card debt, and how much do you have in other assets? Total debt payment, that's the debt payment that you make every year. And what's the net debt as a percentage of the equalized value? So a couple of things that you have in regards to fund balance. Over the last 3 years, you've been able to increase your fund balances to 2.7%. That's 12% roughly of your budget. Standards & Poor's looks at about 8% and says you're doing well. Okay. What's your net debt? Forces driving the budget. You've been pretty, you're going to see some slides coming along, but you've been pretty steady. Next year, you're going to have a big nut. Your health insurance costs, you're on the state health benefits plan, your health insurance costs are going to go up 20%. That's roughly $300,000 on your budget.
That's all?
Which is
Only
roughly.
20?
Yeah, only 20.
I thought with our president of 40, so that's pretty.
Well, maybe they're giving a break. I don't know, Mayor. That's, but it's still 4% of your total budget. You're looking at a 4% increase in regards to your health insurance.
What's our credit rating right now?
AA+. On the flip side of that, you have a reduction of $800,000 in your debt payments. You have some debt coming off. So you have good news, bad news. In regards to your revenues, there are only 4 sources of revenues in any municipality: state aid, local receipts. Local receipts is what you bring in across your counters. That would be construction fees, that would be recreation fees, things of those items. Fund balance, I've already talked about fund balance. That's what you simply net at the end of the year. This is 2021. Then you have property taxes. In Inglewood Cliffs, property tax is 81% of your revenues. your state aid, and there's a reason your state aid, most municipalities' average state aid is 7%. Yours is lower because you're a wealthier community. And so when you look at the averages, that's why your average will be a little bit lower than the others. Your fund balance and tax levy comparisons. You can see that your fund balance has gone up. We're looking at 2.6 on the far right. You can see that you're looking at 2.6 million. Last year you utilized, or in 2021, you utilized $1 million. You still remain pretty steady at $2.6 million. Your tax levy, all sources of levy was 39,731,000. You collected 99% of that. So excellent work. The apportionment of the tax rate, as you well know, the local schools receive the bulk of the tax. The county and the municipality share the remainder. That's true in any municipality. Well, I can't say that. That's true of the vast majority of municipalities. I'm going to go back to this slide here. I'm sorry. The one thing I failed to say is that when it comes to revenue sources, and this is mostly pertinent to the department heads, there is no money tree. You can't go back out behind the building, shake, 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 and find $50,000. It does not exist. There are only 4 sources of revenues. Operating expenses, you only have 4 sources of operating expenses. Statutory expenses, that's pension, that's other state obligations, insurance, health insurance, and your property and casualty insurance. Salary and wages, we know what your salary and wages make up about 55% of the budget. When you add the insurance on it, you're looking at about 70% of the budget is in salary and wages. Then you have your operating expenses and your debt payment. Englewood Cliffs municipal tax per person per month. So I'm not sure why that didn't come up, but you have it on your handout. So,
Page 9.
for 24-hour police protection, you pay $70.70 a month. That's the average person in the municipality. For public works, road repair, large item leaf collection and disposal, you pay $30.26. For your parks and recreation programs and services, you pay $1.64. For fire, you pay $4.17 a month. That is the taxpayers paying $4.17 a month because you have a volunteer fire department. So in total, the taxpayer per capita pays $106.77 a month, which is less than your monthly internet bill. Cap issues. One area to note of concern is you're running up against your levy cap. Currently, you have $186,644 in cap balance. That means in regards to taxation, you can only go up that much. That said, there are 3 ways to address this. One is you increase your revenue sources, primarily through additional fund balance, which you're in a position that you could utilize if you so willingly want to. 2 is you reduce your budget and your expenditures. Or 3, which is what most municipalities do, is a combination of both. So this shows you budgeted salaries. In 2022, your salary and wages went down a little bit. The slide is it's $17,000. So so it went down a little bit. You have fluctuations in your salary and wages, and it's mostly due to, of course, how many employees you have. So the other thing that you have, that's operating budget. You also have a capital program. And last year, if you recall, we started working on a capital program, and we had the department heads come in and they presented 3 years of capital items. it should be 5 years. And under Shoaib's direction, that's exactly what they're gonna be doing, is they're gonna be bringing in 5 years of capital, information. That doesn't mean that you're approving something 5 years out, but you need to start planning for 5 years out. I used to have a common phrase, if somebody came to me and said they wanted to buy something and it was only 2 years out, I'd say you're wrong. That's it, you're wrong. You should have thought about that 4 years ago. Don't bring it into me today. Then I'd say if you want to reduce another item because you think that's a priority item, it has to be quid pro quo. We're not going to move that bottom line. So, review of the debt payment schedule. Your 2023 submittal is a detailed description of the items, a cost estimate. You should ask every department heads to give you an alternative revenue source. That would be grants or trade-offs. So ask them to do their homework. So what's really key here is you look at your review of your debt payment schedule. And I think some of you are familiar with this. You saw this in last year's budget presentation that was in May. Anyway, you have approximately $800,000 in debt payment coming off from 2022 to 2023. That's a significant amount of money for a budget your size. So as I said earlier, you're under cap issues, but at the same time, you had some significant capital items that the department heads were requesting starting last year. So you're going to have to decide what's your balance in regards to that. As an example, you have, for 2023, you have the fire department, and that's a big ticket item, requesting a new ladder truck. I'm not going to comment as to whether you need the ladder truck. I'm going to comment that the fire department thinks you need the ladder truck, and you need to investigate and determine if you need a ladder truck and when you need the ladder truck.
Do you know how often the ladder truck is actually used as opposed to the pumper?
I do not know, Mayor. That's a valid question to ask. Because
I mean, it might be a relevant question because of the way, the state is pushing us into affordable housing, and it'll be higher rise than what we're accustomed to.
well, the size of the number of stories you have in a building, in your buildings is pertinent to whether you need a ladder truck and what size of the ladder truck. So whether you have it this year, whether you have it a little bit down the road, the department is saying they need a ladder truck, you're gonna have to start working with that. Okay.
How old is the existing ladder truck?
I don't know. I know he presented that
A
information.
little over 20 years.
Yeah, I think it is. And they presented that information during the discussion last year.
30?
Yeah. Your group insurance, I'm showing in 2023, and the next 3 or 4 charts are simply line graphs showing where you're trending. Because you need to know, just as, you are incorporated by the state as a municipal service corporation. That's how a municipality is incorporated. So you should be looking at the same information as if you were in a private company looking at information. What's driving our expenses? Some of the things that we talked about already is your group insurance plan for employees. Then you have your total employee cost. 2017 is a misnomer. I could not figure out why there was a reduction in that. So I would just say that was outside of the margin of error, and I would take it out, but I left it in the chart, because you're not gonna drop $700,000 in 1 year in your total employee cost. So
But the insurance went high, so there's no correlation here between the insurance and the employee cost. Let's go together.
well, they do, except for sometimes the rate of an increase on your insurance plan exceeds the rate of the increase in your other employee costs.
Not to that level.
So they don't always mirror each other. But next year, you're gonna have a 20% increase. Now, honestly, the state health benefits plan has held their costs. Over the last 5 years, your costs have been about 3 to 3.5% increases in health insurance. A couple of years, you didn't have any increases. That, I think, and at the same time, the state health benefits plan is being hit by the exact same factors as corporations are being hit at. They invest in the market. Their investments have gone down. Healthcare costs continue to increase. Should they have been a little more aggressive in maybe some of the out years? Maybe, but then if you do a calculation, it may end up costing you the same. So I would say if they keep on this trend, you need to, then you could start looking at alternatives. But right now, if you look at their costs associated with other private plans, you'll see that they're still the best bang for the buck in the state, in my opinion. Public works functions, your public works has gone up a little bit. I would say 2021, I don't believe you had any additional personnel. I think you brought in some additional equipment, but you also had rising asphalt costs. Okay, so when you're paving the streets, you're going to pay for the rising asphalt costs. Your total operations, including contingencies within the caps, over the last 3 years, from 19 to 2021, have been fairly steady. So you're not seeing any huge spikes and drops. Your total municipal debt service, excluded from the cap, is you've seen some increase from 2019 to 2021, but your debt service should be dropping off next year significantly. So you should see that chart dropping off. Your healthcare costs, this is per family. This is up to 2021. It doesn't include 22 and 23. Your number of employees, you actually had a drop in number of employees from 2020 to 2021. I know there was 3 vacancies. 3 positions were left vacant in the Public Works Department. And that went over for 2 years. Those are being filled, but you had them in your 2022 budget. And then with that, I'll just offer any questions.
You know anything that we can be cutting in terms of expenses off the top of your head? You've been here, I don't know, 9 months. What can we cut?
3 or 4 months, but yeah, I've been here a while.
What can we cut?
Yeah, I can't think of any significant efficiencies right off the bat, other than you can continue to work on what we call the margins. If you feel like, and you need to do more work, if you feel like you have a department that is personnel heavy, you don't necessarily have to do layoffs, but you can cap it. You can say, if we have any vacancies, we're not going to fill them.
Do we have any departments that are personnel heavy?
You have some. What I would suggest, Mayor, is that you do a little research and look at surrounding communities and compare yourself to like communities, which would reveal that in some areas you may have some staff.
Oh, we'll do that, but you started answering that in a different way.
No, I think I answered it in the way that I thought was best. Okay.
But you started differently. Okay.
I think that
Is
with
there-
a little more homework, when the department heads come in, those are good, legitimate questions to ask of the department heads.
Well, you're the supervisor of all the department heads, so.
But my last day was November.
Right, but you've been here, so I'm asking when you got paid for the work, so we'd like to know what you think.
Yeah.
No one's holding you to it, but what do you think?
I think you should review all of your departments. I know it's the same question, it's the same comment, but because I think all of the departments should always be reviewed, and always should be reviewed and compared. You need to have a scorecard. Municipalities in New Jersey don't do scorecards very well. You need to know what the other municipalities are producing for the same amount of money.
Right, but I think we're unique in a lot of ways in terms of other municipalities, so that's why I'm asking you.
You do have some uniqueness. You're very,
For the hourly rate of whatever you're getting paid, 175, I felt we could ask you that question and you could answer it.
I would think that most of your departments are in pretty good position.
Okay.
Okay?
What do you anticipate? There's been some rumblings about some departments having more work than usual. Is that built, can we build that into the forecast?
I'm just
to
gonna
increase?
note, if we get into any specifics about a department or a particular employee.
No,
Yeah, I know your question is, I'm just saying I don't wanna go any
I
further
appreciate
than
that. Thank you.
So I would say that I've never met a department that never had more work than they could possibly do, yet they always get the work done.
Okay.
Okay.
What about on the other side of the ledger, the revenue side?
Well,
What can we do there?
yes, you need to, and I've already talked to the assessor, Ms. Holbert, you need to get the construction official and the assessor together, and they need to clear the books. By that I mean, is if you have projects that are done, nearly done, you need to get those, not projects, I mean construction permits that are done, nearly done, you need to get them closed out and on your tax rolls.
Really? I thought that takes place as a matter of course.
It does, but sometimes projects languish and they simply need a little bit of motivation.
Motivation,
I don't know of any specific project, I'm just saying in general.
so it's possible for people to game that?
It's not possible for them to game the system. It's because eventually it's going to be, it's going to be addressed. But what is possible is if you don't create a sense of urgency, that your construction official and your assessor don't realize they really need to get this done now.
Okay. So is there a list of work in process? that-
Open permits.
Yeah, you just,
And there's a list of all those?
oh yeah, they have a list of
And-
open permits.
Open
And
permits.
this is not, Mr. Mayor, this is not pertinent solely to Inglewood Cliffs. This is every municipality.
Everyone.
Every municipality, until you get them motivated, thinks, well, I'll just close that permit when the work is done. Or I'll put that on the books when they tell me. Well, no, you want to call down there and say, hey, what open permits do you have? What permits can you close by the end of the year? We need to bring up our NBT.
You also doing a favor to the homeowners to close the permits, because they want to sell the house, all of a sudden permit is open from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and it's a big thing. So, I think it's a good idea, the town will get revenue, the homeowners will close the permits, and, everybody wins here with that.
How many open permits do we have right now?
Mr. Mayor, I do not know. I know I was here for a while, but, I was part-time and, I was putting out many fires during the days, so.
Find out with Kathy.
Okay,
Which I could have concentrated on some other things.
that's fine, thank you.
Have you, your assessment on technology, and I think, you had the gentleman here, to make things more efficient. Will that, do you recommend that we move on that? And
We do.
yes, and do you have any other general, from all of your 30 years of experience, do you have any other general recommendations that you can leave us with?
Well, the municipality could do with some investment in your presence on the web and your data and production in regards to, permits.
Mhm.
Not permits, it's not the production of the permits, it's the sharing of the information as spatial data presented to you a couple
Right.
of weeks, which also will allow the customers to address and get information done in advance of having to come in here, which should mean that they're going to be more efficient. The department could be more efficient. Departments could be more efficient. In general, is just a little more foresight in how the municipality handles its funding, which I think with Shoaib and the staff that he is in the office, you're gonna see that as the year progresses. You have a real pro in here, and he's taking a real interest in doing that. And so with that, if there aren't any other questions, I'd like to turn it over to Shoaib, and he can talk to you about this.
Can I ask you one question, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. And it's along the budget lines as well. I know that, our affordable housing project that's supposed to be ongoing over here. I just wondered if you have any information that you could pass on to us, and maybe you don't, or maybe Michael, if you do. I know that financing was supposed to be put in place in December. It's now December. Maybe you haven't, but I know there was a presentation. The gentleman came here and spoke to us about what possible exposures we may have. I believe maybe you were here for that meeting, but if you haven't had anything? Have you heard anything about our
I don't,
financing?
Councilman.
Okay.
Our office can certainly provide you.
I'd like to know, because I know it's supposed to be, maybe the mayor, I don't know if anybody else, but I know that there was supposed to be financing in place. I don't know if there's been any discussion with you either with regard to our new affordable housing, because on the timeline that we have with the state and fair share housing is our financing is supposed to be in place this month. And I'm just wondering if anybody has any information at all on our financing, because we went from 0 to $3 million exposure, and I think that would change your budget presentation significantly.
Jonathan?
Okay, no one has any, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Hi, how are you?
In terms of scheduling.
Thanks for coming, by the way.
No problem, anytime. In terms of scheduling, the state's statutory deadline to introduce the budget is tied to the generation of an unaudited financial statements, because in reality, we can have all the department head meetings before the end of the year, but in reality, you can't really put a good budget together until the year is closed out. So that's why the annual financial statement is generated by February 10th, and the state's introduction of the budget is also tied to the same date. However, given the state's resources and the lack of information coming out of the State Department, they have historically extended that deadline into March. So at least for the last 5 to 7 years that I can think of, that introduction of the budget was pushed to at least March 31st or later. So a realistic schedule would be an introduction at either your regular March meeting or a special meeting at the end of March with an adoption in April. And then working backwards, if we have the annual financial statement done by the end of January, and we use that month of January to meet with the department heads, if there are council committee members that want to be present at that meeting, we can certainly accommodate that. And then take the month of February to introduce the budget, have it available to you as a draft at the February meeting for your comments, and then taking your comments, change it or, update it for the introduction at the regular meeting in March or a special meeting in March. But basically, to repeat, you can't really get a good start on it until the year is closed out and you know what your revenue realized was for the last year, so you know how much you can anticipate. Your state aid figures have basically been flat for the last at least 10 years, if not more. You are heavy on your property taxes, so in terms of maximizing your local revenues, it will be tough to come up with additional revenues from the 20% that you're working with. And in that 20%, you have the fund balance and your state aid. It doesn't really leave you much room. My strategy to do a budget is basically I prepare a salary roster for all the departments. So the mayor and council know what level of personnel you have in each department based on the settled labor contracts or any other agreements that you have with employees. Health benefits roster for both your active and retired employees. You are a Chapter 88 municipality, which means you are paying for health benefits for your retired employees, which adds to the health benefits cost. And I will provide you with all that information in a form of a workbook or, however you prefer to receive it, but you will have all that information. So when we are looking at the budget, you're not going through that detail verbally. You have backup to attach to review. So that's my strategy. It's worked fine for me for the last 20 plus years, and I expect to implement that here. Of course, with your comments, if you need any changes done, we're happy to accommodate.
Thank you very much.
Sir, can you please, as soon as you can, find out from either Michael's office or maybe reach out to Mr. Rath, who the consultant is on our affordable housing project. I forget his name right now, that was here and did a presentation. And find out what our exposure and our financing that's supposed to be in place this month. Because the last I heard, it was like $2.7 million. And that could impact our budget going forward. And it's now December 12th, and I haven't heard one thing about our financing being in place for this month, so.
Let me just clarify a point, because Mr. Luciano misstates the identification of the person that was here. That is not our consultant, sir. That is the developer. He's the builder. It's his financing that we're talking about. He's got to get his financing. And based on what he gets, there might be a delta that the state of New Jersey decides to push at Englewood Cliffs taxpayers to make up the difference. So you're mistaken. He's not our consultant.
Okay, excuse me, not our consultant, the builder, whatever name you want to call it.
His name is
Whatever the
Jonathan
exposure is, there's a gap in there that the mayor could play semantics all he wants, but we're going to have some kind of exposure. The last that was reported to us from the developer, not the consultant, was $2.7 million. And that, to me, in our budget going forward, could be an impact. So I'm just asking for you to please contact the developer.
This is not about semantics.
No, it's about our budget.
It's a branch of linguistics.
That's what it's about. It's about our budget.
This is not about semantics. This is about understanding the reality around you, Mr. Luciano.
I know.
He's a developer. It's not a linguistic trick. He's a
You know
developer.
what my
It's not our
question was,
consultant.
Mayor, that's the bottom line.
Okay.
He's concerned about the financing.
He is, but he needs to be clear.
Well, if it's the borough's exposure and it's $2.7 million that you're stating, I don't think the state would expect you to put that in your operating budget in one shot.
I don't think so
Considering you
either,
have a
but
$21 million budget to begin with.
as you know as well as I do, it impacts our debt service though.
It will.
So I'm not talking about operating budget, as you and I well know that I'm not. So let's talk about what
I'll
the
look into it
impact
further.
is, please.
Thank you.
Are you-
I know you have a lot of work to do. The developer's gonna come back to us. He's gonna tell us the status, and then we'll let you know. You can deal with it.
Then he also has to
You got
work
this.
on the inflation.
Any questions?
Yes.
It's the-
Other anticipated settlements or litigation or costs, have they been reviewed and taken into consideration on both of, either one of you can answer that question? I think we've got, we've got a couple of potentially large,
You're talking about tax appeal settlements?
No.
No, litigation.
That's another issue.
litigation.
Councilman, obviously, I don't think we could discuss our position on that here in public.
No,
I will-
I'm
I
just,
will- yeah,
I'm just
I
asking
understand.
very simply, is, when you create the budget, are you including that, or?
We always, and I know Shanae is a professional, we would inquire as to, from the municipal council, as to what potential exposure is out
Understood, so that the eyes are
there.
open.
That
on
should be normal.
Understood, okay, thank you very much.
Special Counsel Jerry Gasty, who has handled a lot of the litigation surrounding this, is expected to be in attendance at the Wednesday meeting, so if you have any questions related to that.
Great.
that-
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget?
No, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome,
Very
and
informative.
we did leave one there for the public as well, so you should be wanted.
Can we just put this up on the website?
Sure.
Is that right?
All right by me.
All right. So I wish you both a good evening. I know it's been a long day for you, so feel free to leave if you
You're
have.
sticking around.
I'm sticking around for the.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go into closed session now. I need a motion to do that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone opposed? Okay, Ms. Borges, can you read the appropriate language to go into closed session?
Whereas the mayor and council of the Borough of Englewood Cliffs has deemed it necessary to go into closed session to discuss certain confidential matters. And whereas the minutes of this closed session will remain confidential as permitted under the Open Public Meetings Act, or shall be released when there is no further need for confidentiality, as authorized by the borough attorney. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council of the Borough of Englewood Cliffs will go into closed session for the following matters as permitted under the Open Public Meetings Act for Fifth Street improvement analysis and documentation and for personnel issues.
Okay, so the public will be back in about half an hour. I'm not sure if we're taking any action, though, when we come back, so, if we do, we'll reopen to the public. Yes, hi. Yeah, so, no, it's not actually in the agenda I'm looking at. So, we are going to add discussion of the park renovations. There's two parks, Veterans Park and Liddy Field, also known as Johnson Park. So we are going to discuss that in closed session too. And I don't know if Ms. Borchers needs to read that
I
to
would
the
just
record.
make a motion to amend the executive session agenda to
Okay.
take that as a topic.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. DiGregorio, Mr. Luciano are off the dais, they're not voting.
If you want, I guess by acclamation, I guess a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Not doing it.